So this is the act which talks about prevention, prohibition, redressal of sexual harassment of women at workplace. While this act came into existence in 2013, there is a certain work which was done much before it based on certain cases which came into open on sexual harassment at workplace. When you look at these statements, are these offenses? Somebody singing a song, whistling, right, winking at a colleague, or joking, or any context in the office space where people are in a casual mode and are enjoying a conversation or an interaction, or just trying to be very friendly. These are not offenses. However, if there is an impact on anyone in the team or anybody around that place where certain situation or act or behavior is exhibited, that can lead to offense and under this act. Let's look at what is this act all about. The sexual harassment of women at workplace actually came into existence in 2013, but there was a precedence which happened in the state of Rajasthan where a government worker, a grassroots level worker, in the course of her work has stopped a child marriage and she was assaulted. Bhavri Devi was her name, and the state of Rajasthan, there was a case filed in the Supreme Court by an NGO, and this case went almost for 5 to 7 years, where finally the Supreme Court had given a landmark judgment called Vishaka Guidelines. First judgment in this country talked about prevention of sexual harassment at workplace, prohibition, and also redressal mechanism. Instead of the aggrieved person going to pillar to post like it happened in Bhavri Devi's case, they have formulated an internal committee within the organization so that the complaint is redressed at a given time and immediately the aggrieved person gets justice. So around 90% of the cases have been recorded once this act came into existence. That means there has been a prevalence of harassment at workplace. Around 40% of the cases were straight away had a criminal intention in, and then that's how these cases have come out because of this act and also the internal committee being in place. However, the adoption of this act was very negligible in the initial years, and even in Vishaka Guidelines, though it came into existence in 2000, adoption was very less. Not many people knew and not many organizations bothered. However, with the act, and there is a control mechanism which the government is looking at by reporting, all that has made it little more viable for organizations to continue practicing this particular act. And this comes as a compliance, and it is a compliance because the company law straight away stated that if any organization registered in this country is not practicing or not having an internal committee within their organization, their business license will be forfeited. That means a first complaint where there is no internal committee or a person who is harassed is going out of the company to complain, there could be a penalty of 50,000. And the second case, the business will be losing their license in this country. Criminal law already has, Indian Penal Code has certain sections which deal with this harassment. However, with this act, it is very clear that the employer is accountable and responsible for the safety and security of the employees. It's no longer an individual who has to go complain somewhere and get justice. Ministry of Women and Child Welfare also looks into this particular act more from the implementation and also the statistical data analysis. Ministry of Labor Welfare, very important for any workforce related matters, and the local state government, in this case the appropriate government of the state, is also in charge of the implementation and also make certain preventive steps for the citizens. For example, in Telangana, we have Barosa, She Teams and She Shuttle, and these are all the initiatives through public-private partnerships which have made the city more safer for women. So let's look at the Act. Quickly, I will take you through the certain sections I want to make it as simpler as possible for you to grasp what is this act about. So in this particular act, they have defined what is sexual harassment. And they define, there are 3 types of sexual harassment. One is verbal, when somebody is using a conversation or making a sound or making a verbal interaction with someone, like telling jokes or singing songs, repeatedly asking someone who is not interested, or whistling, or any comments which are either directed to somebody or indirectly also. So this is a verbal harassment. Non-verbal is, there is no words or anything, but it's non-verbal, by gestures, by stalking, by staring, inappropriate looks, all that come under non-verbal. And the physical, of course, there is a touch, hugging, or showing pornography, or even making the person feel very uncomfortable, intimidating stance around them, or showing microaggressions like anger display, or creating a scenario where the other person feels fearful and intimidated. These are all coming under the sexual harassment types. Very importantly, this act talks about workplace. Workplace here is not just an office space, but also an extension of the office space. For example, if a team is going out for an outing or a vacation or a team outing or outbound training, that is also an extension of the workplace. So also workplace is not just where an employee and employer relationship is maintained. It is also a service giver and a service receiver. It could be a hospital, it could be an educational institute, it could be a religious institute. After this act came into existence, there were a lot of complaints from those places which nobody would have thought would have sexual harassment. Religious places, educational institutes, and also agricultural farms. So workplace also includes client place, when people are traveling together from the same company, outbound training, as I told you, cafeteria, service apartments, even those places where people generally go when they are not keeping well, the resting places in the organization. And also now after COVID we have work from home. So even home is an extension of a workplace where someone can be aggrieved due to sexual harassment. And the situations, when people look at what kind of situations will have this kind of harassment, we have seen general perception is a male superior and a female subordinate. It's not like that. We have seen even at a same rank, people have complained. An incident can take place where the person who is harassed may not be knowing that they have been harassed unless somebody points out an inappropriate behavior or a situation. The incident can result where the perpetrator, also the person who is harassing, may say that it is in good intention. Intentions are not counted here. It is the impact which is counted. The victim and the perpetrator or the aggrieved person can be any gender. Now that we have third gender also coming into the organizations, we have to be conscious about the behaviors around them. The perpetrator does not have to be an opposite gender. Impact of inappropriate behavior, very, very alarming, that if it is a physical injury, you go and take a treatment and the injury is treated. But if it is an emotional injury, a psychological setback, or a trauma, a mental trauma, it takes longer time to heal, and sometimes if it is not addressed, it will have a larger effect on the person's life and people around them as well. So we have seen professionally people suffering on their performance and not being able to give their 100% at work, or feeling that they have lost their potential to work. These are the symptoms we have seen. On the personal side, people lack confidence, low self-esteem, and also physically they have certain illnesses, psychosomatic disorders, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and by and large the person's potential is gone down and he or she will live in a state of confusion. Forms of harassment. Legally, when we look at what is this form of harassment, how do we define that it is a sexual harassment, we look for two things. One is a quid pro quo. Is there any implied or explicit preferential treatment or a detrimental treatment because of the sexual advance? it is very subtly given, or which is a direct, advance as well. So implied or expressed threat or preferential treatment is seen as in exchange of a sexual favor. And another thing, if somebody is denied or somebody is rejected a sexual favor, there is a hostile environment created. So legally we look at these kind of situations whether they are in a complaint when it is raised. Hostile treatment could be not giving work, not creating an offensive workplace for the person to perform, or making the person feel very humiliated and alienated from the teams. So when this is wrong, when people know, educated people know this is not a tolerated behavior, then why do people suffer? Incidentally, when we looked at a lot of complaints, I must have dealt around 300 to 400 complaints since 2000, and I have seen by and large there is a fear factor, and people feel there is a fear of retaliation. And when I ask the aggrieved person, why did you not complain in the first instance? First thing they say is, we are very embarrassed to talk about it. Would people believe in us? What if the person who is in the position has more popularity than me? So people will not believe me. And also sometimes people also think it is okay to tolerate this, because when you come to a workplace, these are matter of facts and you should be bold enough to handle these things. And also we have seen some people are at an extreme thinking that if I complain, the person might lose job, so I will not complain but suffer. So the suffering will go for a longer time, and then at one point it just blows up, and then the complaint, we have to go and see how to deal with that. So, and also very interestingly, we found the new hires who come out of college, they think this is part of the culture. If somebody is treating them inappropriately, they think this is part of the culture. It is the cool culture that we should not complain. So these are the different responses people have given on why they suffer. Interestingly, when we look at why people indulge in sexual harassment, lot of times we have seen people didn't know that is sexual harassment. They think this is okay, normalized behavior. And they say, nobody told us that this is wrong behavior. So inappropriate behavior. So the patriarch mindset, which treats women as, as a weaker gender, always looks at gratitude from the women for whatever behavior they have been given. And also they expect that the independent streak in a woman is not tolerated, and that's how they are getting subjugated. And patriarch mindset is not just in men, even women have patriarch mindset. When we deal with a case, we see women also responding in a different way. From being more practical and objective, they become very subjective. And the second thing we have seen is the conditional thinking, that either you have to be dependent and you can't be independent, not a decision maker. These things are seen at a corporate level. And that's the reason I think why women have not gone to a senior level very sooner than. So, and the third thing is there is a lot of cultural aspects. Like when we were dealing with some cases in the North has a very strict view of women. Now, I'm not generalizing it. There are some cases which are exceptional also than in the South. So some societal norms or rituals or, from where they come from, all these things play a part on how you respond to a woman at workplace. In the new normal, we have seen home as a workplace. And when I was dealing with cases, I thought after COVID or during the COVID, when people were working from home, we may not have complaints. I was wrong. We still had complaints. We had complaints where people have misused the tools which are given by the employer, the chat messages, the conference calls. All these things have also been playing on use of tools in sexual harassment. And fortunately, most of them were recorded, so it was easy for us to deal with the complaint. Pornography, pop-ups, inappropriate pop-up screens, inappropriate, conversations, all these things got recorded. So virtual harassment was also seen during the COVID times. Personal comments, inappropriate emojis, or stalking on the, virtual space in Facebook or Instagram, and then making comments in the social media, which also has given rise to these complaints. So the redressal process, first of all, So as per this act, every company should have an internal committee, a mandatory body which is formed by the management. Members are selected by the management team, and one external member from the NGO side is also part of the committee. So this committee's tenure is 3 years, and generally the people who are picked up in these committees are people who have the maturity, empathy, and also have an understanding on women issues and understand the corporate dynamics also. So such people are part of it, and they have to maintain confidentiality, because any complaint, when it is being dealt, or even if it is come to the notice of the internal committee, from that time on it will be highly confidential. If the person has spoken to others before they came and complained, they have to say where and with whom they have talked about this incident. Redressal process. As per the Act, 30 days is the timeline to redress the complaint and give a recommendation to the management to take action. However, there was one step called conciliation, which is in this particular flow, is now not there. After 10 years, 2013 we got this Act. 2023, when this Act was amended, they have done away with the conciliation. There is no conciliation step now. Earlier, we used to have a conciliation step. Before taking the sexual harassment complaint for redressal investigation, there was a conciliation between the two parties. Now it is not there. So, written complaint to be filed within 3 months of the last incident. This also has been amended in February 2024, and now it is 1 year. So any incident which happened 1 year back also can come as a complaint. And also there was a condemnation by the internal committee earlier that 3 months was given as a grace time in case somebody has not complained within the timeline. Now even that has been taken out. So anyone can complain at any time on an incident they have suffered or they have been subjected. So inquiry but has to be completed in 30 days. All the investigation, witnesses, depositions, just like a civil case, it has to be dealt and all the recordings have to be done. Inquiry report to be issued within 10 days of completion of inquiry, and employer, the management should act within 60 days of the complaint on taking an action as per recommendation. So workplace behaviors that do not constitute harassment. We have seen lot of times people saying that anything people go and complain. These days more complaints are coming because people have become lazy and they don't want to perform. This is a very generalized statement. We have also seen people have complained not because they are affected because of the sexual harassment, but they have not understood the act properly. Sexual harassment, which is complaint but not a harassment case in our investigation, was when people were following up on work, absenteeism, standards of work, and also conditions of the work like standing, sitting for long and all that. These are not sexual harassment cases. However, the behavior of the managers or the colleagues at that time, if it was inappropriate, like the physical, non-verbal or verbal, then it falls into the harassment case. For example, when people are seated and somebody is walking, they start putting their hand and walk, and that's a physical harassment. A complaint came. When we investigated, it was showing on the CCTV footage also, it was an intentionally done thing. And although the person said, accidentally I touched, you can't be touching inappropriately each time when you walk up. So such things also can happen. Redress of the complaint, as I told you, both the parties will be given reasonable assistance by MC. Just because somebody's name came in the complaint, has been accused, doesn't mean that the person is, has to be punished. It has to be dealt as per any other civil code. All the witnesses and whatever the evidences both the parties give have to be looked at, reasonable assistance to be given, principle of natural justice to be followed, and we have to act immediately, not wait for another incident. And all these things also matter when we have to take a anti-retaliation agreement from the respondent. So sometimes there are no witnesses, so circumstantial evidences are taken. And also whatever learnings you have from a case, every case is a unique case. Those things should go into your work norm policy or a disciplinary policy. Documentation, just like I said, civil court, there will be depositions documented and findings will be documented and a final report is made. Monitoring, state government is the custodian, as I told you. So there is a registration in the T-sheet box. The internal committee's numbers, names are given by the organization. An inspection is done by Women and Child Department or the Labor Department, and annual report has to be submitted to the company's annual report. It has to be mentioned in their annual report that they are compliant and number of cases reported. And one annual report will also go to district magistrate, and also any penalties levied have to be paid. So remote workplace complaints, again, we have easy to collect the evidences but very difficult to redress because people are not in one place, they are sitting somewhere. False complaints, most of the time whenever there's a complaint, people start thinking that it is not a genuine complaint, it's a false complaint. But our statistics show that only 2% of the complaints are false. It is human tendency to misuse any law, and this act also is misused in some cases, but we have seen only 2% cases. That's the reason when a complainant complains, we take a self-declaration stating that they are not using any revengeful or vendetta to make a complaint. Punishment and penalties, of course, we have warnings, counseling, and a softer part is that probably the person is not aware, so we give counseling. But when it is going beyond, when the investigation is saying that the person has, and very importantly, the Act clearly states the onus is on the employer. The management has to take responsibility in creating a policy, setting up an internal committee, and also ensuring the internal committee is given freedom to perform their duties, and also taking complaints and redressing. Employer has to create that workspace, sensitize the people, and ensure that everybody understands the respect and dignity at workplace. Employee's role is also important to keep the information confidential, not to sensationalize it, and also maintain a dignity at workplace, not to humiliate others or not to disrespect others, and not to create any scenarios out of their microaggression or their own, weaknesses. So gossiping and, making people feel humiliated, intimidated, these also come under harassment cases. So zero tolerance to sexual harassment because it is unfair, unwanted, unacceptable and unlawful. Let's face it together for a harassment-free environment. Thank you so much. And another thing is, while employer having a internal committee is for the organized sector, the unorganized sectors have their ICs in the district Women and Child Welfare Departments. At every district there is a complaints officer where the construction workers or domestic workers can go and complain. So there is a facility in the WCD to take the complaints and redress in the same way it was done in the organized community. So this is about the POSH Act. Thanks for listening. I was asked to cover about children as well. So one thing which Hyderabad City Security Council is doing is we are visiting all the schools and engaging children, talking to us about their experiences, and we also teach them or at least highlight those aspects where it is a good touch or a bad touch and how the child has to understand that and report. This is very important because these days the crime has gone up both with boys as well as girls. A lot of us think it's only girls. No, even with boys there is sexual abuse and we teach them. And coming to the gated communities, now the context we are here, I think we need to educate every child. We have a forum called Physical Forum where we talk about fire accidents and also electricity related, water related, water bodies in the community. All these things, children need to be educated. Not only children, every citizen need to know. So we conduct classes and you can avail these services free of cost. Hyderabad City Security Council has 5 forums and each of these forum is meant for the citizens. The Physical Forum looks into all the physical aspects. Women Forum for women and children. Traffic is for traffic related. We have volunteers manning the traffic junctions, and we have Anti-Narcotics Forum And we also have cyber security. These days, cyber security crime has gone up. People sitting at home and, working towards looting somebody's from the bank, or, innocuously somebody clicking a link and getting into trouble. So all these things we are educating, advocacy, awareness, and possess action. And we are citizens. I am a volunteer. My day life is with an organization where I work. Like this, we have many volunteers. We also look forward to you to volunteer in one of these forums. Thank you so much for giving us this time. I hope I'm not between you and lunch. Thank you.